As a matter of fact, I reckon we do have a quorum. Miranda, myself, Hugh, and Paul,
Yep.
and I'm pretty sure it's 10 o'clock. So let's call the meeting to order. First business is a public hearing. At the request of the commission will receive public comment for a new carriage house at 102 Union Street. Who is speaking for 102 Union Street?
I am Mr. Foreman. I'm here, and also Robert Thorsey and Stephen Murata are here, who will be involved in the construction of it. I originally canvassed the neighborhood for the zoning hearing, and I went back to as many people as possible to ask them as well. And I heard from Ed Morse, who lives down the street at 112 Union. He regretted not being able to be here. He's on the zoning commission, but he has a prior engagement. He said he's reviewed the plans. We've spoken about an appropriate and wanted to add his voice in support of the proposal. The proposed building is tastefully designed and is very much in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. I feel it will enhance the block aesthetically, alleviate parking demands on Union, which can be onerous, provide a good and beneficial use for an otherwise vacant space. Bob has been an ideal neighbor in soliciting opinion on the structure. I hope it is approved. So
Thank you very much.
And I believe that Peg Patterson on Warren Street might be here. I know she hoped to.
Okay. Terrific. So you've got the microphone and the screen and center stage. Proceed with your presentation, however you want to
go. Why don't I let Stephen then, present? Should we do it in addition to what we did last week? Or
yeah, you are. This is a little bit different scenario. That was just the commission. Essentially, this public hearing is to give you an opportunity to address the public and to give the commission an opportunity to listen to public comment. So a new audience, if you will.
Sure.
So go ahead and present the materials you've got.
Let me briefly introduce things, and then Stephen Murata can show the plans. There was an existing structure on the site which was torn down maybe around 2010 or 2011, we believe, which was a two-story structure. I don't think anyone would call it a historical structure. And in its place, it had been vacant. I believe Galvin had been planning to build a house or two houses on those double plot, which never got approved. When I bought it, I had hoped to put in a garage and a room above it, mainly to be used as my office, because I'm stepping down from the duties of my job, and I will hope to work more and more out of Hudson. And it would provide a separate space away from, my house. Last week, we spoke about additional lighting, which was not in our presentation last week. And I know Stephen can show you that as well, but why don't I let Stephen just show the plan again?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, with your permission, I'm going to share some content. Is that okay?
Please do.
Okay. Let me just do this. So, actually not that. We are going to here, and let's see. This will be the presentation. So if you don't mind, we will start with this drawing, which, how do I make this larger?
Can't actually see.
I don't see anything. Are you sharing?
Yeah, I am.
I don't see anything.
Are you good now?
Yes.
That's it.
Success. Thank you. I was very embarrassed the last time because my presentation didn't go as I expected, but we're looking at the site plan of 102 Union Street. The existing building and lot has been modified, at least proposed to be modified, with a garage on the northwest corner of the plot on Cherry Alley. So it's site plan allows for you to see basically where we're placing that proposed structure. Next photo. So let's see, how do I get to the next photo? It wants to work, it just doesn't want to work.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'm again very apologetic of this.
Sometimes you have to stop sharing and then share again if you're moving between images.
Okay, this is going to be a little bit cumbersome, but we'll try that. And let's hope that this works better this time. So here is the sheet that has the foundation plan to your left. The first floor level, which is basically garage and a set of stairs that gets up to the second story space, which Bob had talked about as being a work area for him. If you look at that rightmost floor plan, you'll see that as you come up the stairs, there's an area for a little conference to your left as you reach the top of the stairs, and to the right is a workspace area. And talking with Bob, he does work a lot of long hours. Sometimes he has some authors that are working with him. So we thought it would be nice to have a small little kitchenette where he could heat up some tea or that sort of thing, so that they could work and kind of share a little bit to eat while they were working. And also, obviously, there's a restroom as well. Let me work my way back again.
One thing I want to reiterate is I have no plans to Airbnb. That's not part of my plan.
So, so we'll go to the elevations next. Why did
Even maybe we could go to the last one where it shows the three structures.
yeah, sure, if you like.
I think they'd get a very good sense of the way it will look.
Sure. You want this sheet?
Yes.
So this is a little bit out of context. They're just three-dimensional images of going from left to right. Basically, the southeast corner of the garage, which if you were standing on the corner of First and Union Street and you looked to the northeast, you would see that elevation with the two doors. The door to the left is actually a door that goes up to the second floor, and the door to the right on the first level allows Bob to get into his garage from his backyard. And
the windows we chose on facing First Street match the house. You know, the little eyebrow windows match the windows in my basement, and then the taller windows would match the windows of the house itself.
yeah, basically our thought with this design is to match as much as possible. The detailing the materials that were used on Bob's residence. So it's cement siding to replicate a wood clapboard. It's composite trim also to replicate wood, and true divided windows, which would match the windows in both detail and color as his existing home. If there are no other questions,
Stephen, you might want to show the fence the way it will look from the outside, and then I think we've probably shown enough unless the committee wants to see more.
Sure. I was just going to say, if you didn't mind, I'd like to give the streetscape option, just because I think that gives a better feel for what this will look like on First Street. So that's basically an elevation of Front Street from Cherry Alley on your left. Moving right, you'll see the proposed residence, the existing fence, which actually gets slightly removed so that it can abut into the new building, and then the existing residence all the way over to the right. And obviously, if you're further on to the right, you would be on Union Street.
Is there a picture of existing condition, like what this looks like right now?
Yes, there is. I will share that with you.
You don't have the original house, Stephen, do you?
I do. Do you want to see that as well?
Yeah, we should show that.
So this, in all its glory, is what was there up until 2010 or 11. So this is looking at Union Street towards Cherry Alley and ultimately Warren Street. So
my house didn't exist.
Right. So that white two-story structure with the partially red, partially non-existent roof is the building that once existed, where we are proposing a new structure. And then for more context, I will show you the corner as it exists now with the fence and that's what currently exists. This is on the west side of First Street, looking northeast. So you get Cherry Alley on your left. The fence, which was installed last year, approved by the commission, and then the back of Bob's home.
I don't know if you want to know, but
Thank you.
I
Sure.
was encouraged to think about more lighting. We can show you what we have been thinking about. Is that the right time now to show you what we had been thinking about in terms of the lighting?
Bob, if you want to, you had you know we're neighbors. You see me walking with my my canine colleague, and you had mentioned that corner can be dark, and the old co-op building and so on. I had mentioned it as more as a neighbor, as a thought. If you're going to go ahead with the lighting, we do want to see it. If you want to consider that at another time, that's no problem either.
Dan sent me a thing tell him we need more.
So however you want to do it. If you're
We'd
thinking
love to
that's
show
part
it
of-
now. We'd love
Great.
to show it now. It's quick.
You should
Yeah,
present
sure.
what you want to present.
Stephen?
Thank you. Yes, here's again the elevations. This elevation shows on the upper left-hand corner the Front Street or First Street elevation, and on First Street we will be proposing, which I'll show you a picture of the fixture in a little bit, but soffit lighting. Light pollution is always something that we try to make sure that we're cognizant of, making sure that, the light that we're trying to provide gets to the location where it needs to be and not everywhere else. So we thought in this situation on First Street, soffit lights would work really well because one, they're imperceptible as you're on the sidewalk because
Couldn't see the lights. You wouldn't see
they're
them.
they're 18 feet up off of the sidewalk, and they're built into, they're recessed into the soffit, so you wouldn't see them. And then just for reference of this elevation, since I can't easily go back and forth, the elevation to the right of that is the Cherry Alley elevation, and you'll see that we've provided 2 wall sconces on that elevation. And as long as you're comfortable with the location of where we're proposing lighting, I can back out of this screen and start to show you some of the images of the fixtures so that you can get a better feel. So let me do that. So
With the fixtures, we also thought of security fixtures that can't be easily broken or smashed. So it's just, there was some attention to sort of fixtures which, you know, would have some protection on them.
So this fixture that I'm sharing the screen right now, this fixture is the recessed light fixture. It's 4 inches square. It's an LED light. You can
And
adjust.
that's for First Street. That's for First Street.
That is correct. So this will be recessed up into that soffit, and it provides downward light. We really wanted to try to focus light onto the sidewalk as opposed to just having it project out and have a range of 360 degrees. So this we thought would be a good application for that First Street location. And then our preferred fixture for the Cherry Alley looks something like this. It's a galvanized fixture. It's pretty secure. It's pretty heavy duty. It's not overly bright. It does have a cage around the light bulb itself and the globe, so we felt that it would be a little bit more secure. Has a little bit of a nautical theme, which harkens back to Hudson's history. So we thought that that would be an appropriate selection. And I have other images, and I also have a screen that will show you the actual dimension of it as well, if you would like.
Stephen, why don't you show the other choices?
Oh, you never show them the other choices unless they don't like the first choice, right?
Well, no, because they wanted, we, you know, worked on trying to get the most tasteful,
Yes,
secure.
I agree.
However you want to go. I'm not really, I don't think we're going to require you to drill down too far in the lighting. I do want you to cover some of the materials because we went through that very quickly in the external structure. And just to confirm that we're all looking at the same thing, this is an empty lot. I appreciate showing the original structure, but you had nothing to do with that. So it's new construction on an empty lot, a single structure, basically garage and carriage house / office.
Correct.
Okay.
So as I said before, it was really, our intention is to match as close as possible what exists. The one thing that is different with this building as opposed to Bob's home is his residence has a flat roof, so you really don't see the roof of his home. In this circumstance, it's a pitched roof, and we're proposing a standing seam roof, colored to be determined, and we certainly could talk about that. You know, we're open to suggestions if you want us to propose something. My feeling is, you know, we would look to find out what's in the area and try to match some of the context that's in the surrounding area in terms of the color of the roof. So the roof is standing seam. All the soffit and fascia material is composite so that it looks clean and new for a long period of time. It certainly will replicate and be perceived as being something of more of a traditional material, and that would work its way through all of the siding and trim, trim for windows and doors, and even the water table that would be at the base of the building structure where the wood frame structure meets the foundation wall.
Show the elevations while you're talking. I think that would be.
Oh,
see.
absolutely. So there's the elevations. So again, the upper left-hand corner is what you would see from First Street. So you have a little bit of exposed concrete for the foundation wall, and then we start with wood siding or cement siding to replicate wood, and corner boards and 5/4 by 4 trim around windows and doors, also composite material.
When you say cement siding, you're assuming to, as Chip would say, a cementatious, a hardy plank or comparable?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
I could also, I
Is
mean,
that the material that's on the house itself? Is the
What was
house
that question?
hardy plank?
Even Miranda wants to know if it's the same material on the actual house.
yes, I'm not sure that it's hardy plank. I haven't investigated enough, but it appears to be either hardy plank or something by a manufacturer that's very similar. So again, a lot of this material comes pre-finished. We would look to find that same exact material and use it so that all the colors match and it's not inconsistent with what's there.
Okay.
The overhead door, which will face Cherry Alley, we thought we would do something that looks a little bit carriage house. Looking, it's going to be a composite of both steel and fiberglass, so you get a recessed panel, or at least this has the cross bucks. There's no lights in the doors just because it faces onto the alley, and we're a little bit concerned about the security there. So it's a pretty durable, insulated overhead door.
Excuse me, I know that this is a public hearing, but I just, in the interest of time, want to point out that the recessed lighting that you're proposing on the street side would be going into a soffit that is raked, as is in this view in the upper right-hand corner. Those soffits are not flat, they're raked. And so the angle of that light is going to be hard into the siding of the building. So that's my only comment. I would say that if you do have other alternatives to that, you might express that or explain that now while we're in the midst of your presentation. Thank you.
Well, you would be correct in that the original drawings that were stamped by the licensed engineers show that the soffit is raked. What I had proposed and am showing you now is the revised elevation. Sorry, I pulled up the stamp set. I didn't get approval from the engineer who stamped the drawings in his review. So this is the elevation as it would look with the lighting. So it's no longer a raked soffit. And we did that so that we could accommodate the recessed fixtures. So it's very perceptive of you to notice that. So,
Stephen, just to remind everybody, you will be actually presenting in some sense twice today. This section is to generate public input. You are also back on the agenda one more time with conversation just with the commission about the project. So if you think you skipped over something or want to address more detail, you have another shot coming up very soon.
okay, I mean, I'm more than happy to answer any questions or provide any more information either now or later. Certainly.
I'd like to open it up to public comment at this point, if that's okay, and we can continue that or talk further when you come up again as a new application.
Sure.
Are there, I saw all manner of folks in the room. I can't really see whose hand is up or not. Are there folks in the public who wish to comment? Craig, were you raising your hand? No. Okay.
Ronald is raising his hand.
Speak. Matt McGee is going to speak.
Hello, this is Matt McGee. First of all, I want to say that the drawings and the presentation and the proposed appearance for the buildings very attractive and well presented
Oh, thank you.
and much appreciated to be, fully informed. But I do not use wood and instead synthetic materials. I think the character of the neighborhood would be complemented better with real material. And I think it would be important to light the side of the building in its entirety with this soffit lights.
You're breaking up.
I
We couldn't hear the last
think
part
that
of what you were saying.
Fixtures, I think that the side lighting of the building on 2nd Street there would be unfortunate, and that it should be lit in the same way as it's lit on the alley side with fixtures close to
Matt, your
Right.
audio's not
now.
working so good.
And the entire side of the building not lit up, lighting for the
Oh, well, we're unmuted.
Okay.
I'm not
thank you.
sure. I'm not sure how I should respond because I'm not sure that I understand the concern or the question. If it's the first street lighting and Matt can still hear, we really tried to select a light fixture that would not be so evident on the street and almost work to supplement any lighting that might be provided by the city from some other either utility pole or something of that nature, and really have it be a soft light that's not directional. So I don't know if that helps with his question or concern, but if he gets better audio or wants to type something, I'm more than happy to address it that way.
Huge concern on that corner is security, which was as much a factor. In terms of the material of the structure we're proposing matches, we believe, identically the house that was built there, and to keep, the unit, in synchronicity with the existing house.
I understand. Any other public comments, or we can adjourn the public hearing? The applicant is coming back shortly to talk about the application, so there's an opportunity for the commission to drill down on any specifics.
We will remain.
Terrific. If you will, then we're going to adjourn the public part of our session, and the commission will go into the regular order of business. Thank you, and we'll see you back in a few minutes. We have, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 certificate of appropriateness votes. I hope I get this right. Noah, can you share your screen with the C's of A?
I can do it as well if
Do we
that's
have
helpful.
minutes from the last meeting?
I do not. I want to talk about how we manage this. I'm not doing so great on minutes. I try to focus in the meeting as much as possible, and I'd hope to replicate the brilliant work that Rebecca did working off audio, and I'm not. So at the end of this meeting, I want to come back to the commission and ask you guys for some suggestions, because we don't have a candidate from the city and none that I'm aware of to take on the secretary position. And it's a problem that has to be solved. I'm not sure I'm the best answer on how we do that.
I would hope that the city would put its shoulder to the wheel and recognize that proper recording of our meetings is really important to the community. So our secretary would be a city employee, and we're desperate for that. And
Chip,
it's impossible.
I
It's
know.
impossible for a commissioner to take minutes at the same time that they're participating in the meeting.
I totally agree, but I don't know how, let's talk about it at the end of the meeting. It should be a simple problem, but it is an important job. The city pays minimum wage for the position. I had spoke to the city clerk. I know Michael Hoffman, the mayoral aide, tried to pitch in, and he does pitch in on everything, really. He's been helping us all through this. And we haven't identified a candidate. So let's put our heads together at the end of the meeting. I totally agree with you, Chip. It is very important. Can we go ahead and look at Steve Survey? Those were Victoria got those out. I'm presuming everybody was able to get them and read them. And maybe we do not have to share the screen. Are you guys okay if we just go through the list of Survey?
Yes.
Definitely, yes, let's do that.
Yes.
Fine. First up is 226 Union Street. Motion to approve C of A as prepared by the city of attorney.
I'll make that motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None approved. 209-211 Union Street, excuse me. Motion to approve a C of A is prepared by the city attorney.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much, Jeremy.
I'll
He
second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None approved. 126 Warren Street. Motion to approve the C of A is prepared by the city attorney.
Phil, excuse me. 126 Union wasn't present at the meeting last 2 weeks ago.
They're coming on today.
You
So
said
we didn't
126
prepare.
Union.
I said 126 Warren.
I'm sorry, 126 Warren. They weren't present at the meeting 2 weeks ago, so we didn't prepare a C of A.
Right.
Okay, okay. They were no show.
Yeah.
Thanks
So if
very
they're
much.
here
Bob.
today, they can
Yes.
present.
No show. 445 Warren Street. Motion to approve the C of A is prepared by the city attorney.
I'll
Anyone?
make that motion.
Paul, thank you. In a second, Miranda, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None approved. 31 Allen Street, motion to approve the C of A. Anyone? Hugh, thank you. Jeremy, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Approved. Where was I? That was 31 Allen?
Yes.
Excellent. 52 South Front Street. Motion to approve C of A is prepared by the city attorney. Hugh, thank you. And a second, Paul, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None approved. 442 Union Street. Motion to approve C of A as prepared by the city attorney. Hugh, thank you. And a second, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None approved. Thank you very much.
Phil, there was also 205, 207 Warren Street from 2 weeks ago.
Okay, and you have a C of A?
Yes. Do you want me to share it on the screen?
Please do. Commissioners, any concern? Otherwise, I'd like a motion to approve.
Hey, you guys, I think this meeting is very good. This historic stuff is so good. Thank you for go you, everyone. Go you.
Oh, that was really helpful.
Go you, everyone. Thank you.
Motion to approve 205, 207 Warren Street.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much. And a second, please.
I'll second, Jeremy.
Jeremy, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Are
Aye.
there any opposed? None. Thank you very much. I think we done did it. Thanks, everyone. Todd, thank you for keeping us on track on this.
You.
Okay.
The good work, guys. Let's go.
Are we able
Michael,
to
can
mute that
you
guy?
could
can
you
we mute-
drop that person out of the
Are we
meeting,
being
please?
Zoom bombed?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, you're being raided
I-
by monkey nuts, bitch. You
Uh,
are being raided, baby.
Okay.
That was fun.
Exciting.
Yes. Going back to applications, and we will return to 102 Union Street. Commissioners, were there details or other information we need on this?
No, I'm satisfied.
I'm too.
I am well. I am as well.
Terrific. May I have a motion to find the application complete?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
second.
Paul. And a second, Jeremy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None. The application is complete. Motion to waive a public hearing and request the city attorney, we already did a public hearing, and request the city attorney to prepare a CV.
I'll make that.
motion.
Terrific. Paul and Jeremy,
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None. You're approved.
Bill, we have the C of A prepared. Do you want to vote on it today or wait 2 weeks?
If it is prepared, if the commission could take a look at that and see if it's accurate, we can actually get that done.
It would hugely help us out if it could be approved.
I'll share it.
I would like to have some discussion about the lighting on the street side. Because I think that grazing that side of the building and highlighting the building is not really an appropriate residential application in the city. And I appreciate the need for lighting on that side, but I think that is not appropriate. And I'd really like to see some alternatives to that lighting concept. I'd
Jeff?
also like to say that the rake soffit is really better and nicer to me than the flat soffit that you made. The rake soffit is more in keeping with an alley building, a more modest building than the front. That said, I do want to say that the application is very good. I think the overall scale and the proportion of the windows and the concept of the building is really wonderful, and I think it'll be a great asset. But I just have a little misgiving about the lighting.
Chip, would you be comfortable if we ask the applicant to I don't know how we do that. Maybe we have to defer on the CV. I was going to say to create a contingency around that, but
Can we present the lighting later? I mean, originally the proposal had no lighting.
I know, and
So we-
I apologize for opening that door. I think we could go ahead with a C of A without the lighting.
We should do
And
that.
then
And
we
if they
we
want
can
to add
address
lighting,
that
they
at a
can come
separate
back.
time and move this forward, seriously.
That would be
I agree.
hugely helpful.
And we
I
can
agree.
approve the lighting on the alley side unless someone has an objection to those fixtures we've been shown.
Yeah, thank you,
So
Miranda.
We'll do everything except the First Street side lighting.
Okay. Is that
I
comfortable with
agree. I
everyone?
think the lighting on the alley is quite appropriate.
Okay, so could we go back to, Todd, can we go back to looking at the proposed certificate?
Can I just ask something, Chip, how would you feel about using the kind of lighting we have in the alley on the side of the building?
I think that would be fine. And
You would be
even-
fine with that.
yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't want it to be real high up on the building. It could be at the same height that it is on the alley. You
I
have the
would be
same
very
security
happy.
problem.
I would be very happy with that. It's not quite as secure, the lighting, but aesthetically, I think that makes sense. If
It's
you're
not
fine
secure,
with-
if you will. It's not secure on the alley side either. So
No.
same difference.
If you're fine with that, I would love to do similar lighting on First Street.
Okay. Todd, can you encapsulate that in the C of A that the lighting is approved, but both sides will be, how would we describe that lighting?
As presented on the alley side, to use that same lighting,
On First Street?
2 fixtures on First Street.
Okay, so those are fixtures, they're not the soffit lights.
No.
Correct.
They're not
Okay.
as strong, but aesthetically,
That's okay.
that's the point.
I would quit while you're ahead on this and let's go ahead with that conclusion. Todd will make the changes.
Thank you. Thanks to the entire commission.
Okay. Did we go through the vote or not quite yet? We did not. Vote to approve the C of A as prepared by the city attorney with the specification that the lighting will be fixtures, same on both sides.
I'll make that
All in
motion.
favor? Motion, Paul, second, you, all in favor?
Aye.
Done deal, you got your C of A.
And I greatly appreciate it.
Okay,
I still want to meet your dog.
you're sure?
Okay, take care.
You know his name is Bob.
I'm honored. Okay, take care.
C of A application for 239 Warren Street, am I correct? That was, I believe, Rob Boujon's property. We missed it in a previous meeting. Craig, do I have that right?
Yes, yeah, I thought he was gonna be on today.
Is anyone here to speak for 239? Not, okay,
I'll
so,
text him.
pardon? I'm sorry, did someone speak for 239? No, okay. We'll catch them next meeting. We have, I think, a great opportunity to listen to an interesting presentation from the
Bill?
Friends of Public Square. Concept presentation for the restoration of the 7th Street Park.
Phil, can I just interrupt quickly? Is,
Yes.
126 Warren Street, if anyone's here today, they were no show 2 weeks ago.
I don't see anybody here.
Okay.
Let's go ahead with the Friends of Public Square. Who's gonna tee up the 7th Street Park concept?
Hold on. I'm here. I'm Gail Whitwer-Laird from Star White House, and I see Catherine and Dorothy on the line as well. I don't know, Catherine, if you want to say any introductory remarks or.
No, I think we'll turn it directly over to you, Gail.
Okay,
Thanks.
that's
And
fine.
we may have comments later, but let's turn it over to you.
Okay, that's fine. So I am Gail Whitwer-Laird. I'm a landscape architect and principal at Star White House Landscape Architects and director of the Hudson office. And I'm joined today by Chris Anderson, who's an associate also in the Hudson office, and Yaniv Korman, a landscape designer who has joined Star White House very recently, but is an expert on water. So we have a small part of our team here. And I just want to say that personally, I love this project and so honored to work on it. It's such a special space. And I have to confess, I've been eyeing it for years. So you're really lucky to have FOPS spearheading this effort. And we're here to work with you all along the way. I think it's important to note that today we're going to share just some of our early analysis of the park and some of our early thinking on the design approach. We're not here to share a design per se. We're going to flag different issues and possible solutions, and we're here to get your feedback on that. This is a very short design process that we're engaged in, with the final deliverable being a feasible plan and a cost estimate so that it can be used to leverage grant funding. So this is a short design exercise to bring together community needs with balancing community needs with the historic character of the park, and to come up with cost and feasibility that can be all packaged up and hopefully make this year's New York State EPF grant deadline. So this is a one small step for the park. So without further ado, I will go into the presentation. I'll share my screen now. Okay, let's see. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So I would also like to just thank Jim Hoon and the Hudson Area Library for sharing all of their archive of images, and Star White House has also started to accrue an archive of our own. I think I've ordered every possible postcard that exists off eBay. But there's always a new one out there. So on the cover you see one of the easier ones to find, which is actually a colorized version of a Rolls studio photo. It's frequently postmarked from 1908. And you can see the view of the park looking north, and some horse carts in the background, and the park in the foreground. So let me go into the presentation. So the goals of this project are multiple, and I'll just go through them really briefly. But one really important goal is to increase connectivity of the park to its context. Some of the intersections are not accessible. The rail tracks certainly have presented a challenge since the park was built. We'd like to celebrate the park's history. It is an extremely important historic space for Hudson, and we recognize that and want to nurture that in the new park design. At the heart of the park is the fountain, and I think in every survey I've read and everyone I've spoken to, the fountain is really the most important thing to people. People really want the fountain back in the center of the park. So that's a core part of what we're looking at. And we want to enhance the park's ecology, the soils, the trees. How can it be a more sustainable park? And how can we give it what it needs for the next generation? Certainly this design won't do that, but we'll talk about ways that a design could implement those things. I won't go through this whole timeline with you. This is the Historic Preservation Committee. I'm assuming that you all know all of this by heart, but the land for the square was given to the city of Hudson by Ezekiel Gilbert, who was the attorney that incorporated Hudson. And apparently he had a house on this end of town and gifted the land to the city. The fountain, the railroad went through the park in 1837. So basically not very long after it was a public square. And the current design, we believe, was implemented around 1878. It was paved for a long period and then landscaped and planted. And in Anna Bradbury's book, I believe she talks about the railroad also contributing to the park because they realized, how the negative impact of the rail on the park. And this lower photo is a really nice one. It's from 1934. Two teachers from the New York Training School for Girls sitting at the edge of the fountain. So going forward in time, the Venus statue and fountain stays in the center of the park until 1975, when it was removed for the fountain below, sponsored by the Kiwanis Club, called the Inspiration Fountain. Venus was kept in the park. She was moved to the northwest corner and put on a pedestal, but that was not a good move because she was both vandalized and hit by cars, and was then subsequently removed in 1998 from the park. 2021, FOPS was established, and it has been spearheading. I hope everyone has noticed some small, but I think really meaningful improvements to the park, painting the benches green, getting the trees that were hazards removed, really working closely with the city on doing the best we can with what's there now. And I think that's important because it starts to reveal the park to people. It starts to show that the city cares and this organization cares. So I just want to really thank FOPS for everything they've been doing leading up to this. So the historic landscape closest to the landscape we have now was very simple. It had 4 axial paths leading to the center fountain. The ground plane was a flat turf, much like many of the commons in New England that you find with the fountain at the center. The trees, the park was surrounded by a square of trees. The trees from the images appear to be American elms. You can tell by the vase shaped that you see on the trees, and were likely lost in the late 40s, early 50s to Dutch elm disease. I've also noticed, it's like a side project, I've been collecting images of all the elm trees in Hudson. It'd be an interesting subject for another day, but I think Hudson, was very leafy at one point in time until Dutch elm disease hit. And I think that's just something to note. So prior to Star White House joining, FOPS has done a couple of community engagement sessions. The biggest one was at the library in February of 2022. I actually attended that. It was a Friday night, and I said, why don't I just show up? So I actually was at that, sitting at a table as a community member. But 29 people attended. The mayor was there. The council president, Tom DiPietro, was there. And the input was organized around 3 questions. What activities would people like to see in the park? What can support these activities? And what are ways to achieve these goals of supporting those activities? So those are kind of the 3 buckets of feedback. And I think some of the common themes, I'm not going to go through all of them, but when you look at activities, there's a desire for having a quiet place to kind of read or drink your coffee. And then in the other end of the spectrum, a place for events and gatherings. I know Winter Walk last year, there was the Hudson High School around the fountain, and it was really lovely. So how can the park kind of balance this spectrum of need between being a quiet public space and a public space that's for gathering? What will support these ideas? So a working fountain, a place to gather. There was a lot of requests for stage, place for music. And another theme, I think, in all of these is how can the park or the fountain be child friendly, right? The kids are going to get in the water anyway. So how can the fountain be designed to kind of encourage and support that without turning it into a full on, splash pad? So how can it be interactive, not just for children, but for everybody, and safe and beautiful, is really the challenge here. And then the strategy, how to preserve the historic nature of the park, and how to just upgrade all of the things that haven't been upgraded for a long time. The paths are in extremely poor condition and have a lot of trip hazards, etc. So we're looking at all of these things at the same time. And in order to do that, what we've started to do is just look at things, kind of compartmentalize a little bit the research. So we're looking at the edges of the park, the interior of the park, and then the fountain. Those are kind of the three things we're looking at as we start to assemble early concepts. One thing that we've observed, and I think is a really interesting historic feature of the park, is this granite curb you see that encircles three sides of the park that actually appears, and little piers at the gate, actually appears if you look closely in those early postcards. So the original park had this very simple, elegant curb. It's fairly wide and rounded at the top, with these granite piers at each of the entrances. So very simple, yet very elegant way of framing the park. And we'd like to make sure that any renovation restores this and perhaps completes the edges that are missing. I think it defines the edge and sets a tone for the park. Here you can see the piers again, entering into the park looking north. Here's just a good example of the condition of the path, the edges of the path, the tree roots. Something to notice, because this affects what we're looking at later on, is you can see how in many places the lawn is, can you see my little hand? Make sure you can see my little hand.
Yes.
The lawn is worn because the path's a little narrow. So if three people are walking side by side, inevitably one person is not walking on the path, and it compacts the grass and makes it impossible for the grass to grow. And that condition is actually found in several areas along the perimeter of the park. The infamous rail crossing here, it's been there since the park was built. It is not a super safe crossing. It's not accessible. It's very eroded on the park side, and you can cross, but it takes a little doing. It doesn't have the same flush treatment right at the rail like you do at Warren and 7th Street. So that is something, if it were to be kept, you could improve that surface. That's going to take a lot of coordination with CSX, and we're not doing this as part of this process, but we are cataloging all of the things that will need to happen in order to make a design go through. So part of our job is really setting the scope for doing a detailed design, and this is one of them.
Hi there, Paul. Shaquita from the front desk at the Paul.
Hi.
The other thing to note is, while the rail tracks are there, they are limited trains per day. So we have schemes where we remove or keep this path, and I think it's something we should keep on the table until we really get consensus on that strategy. And it might not happen in this phase. There's a Veterans Memorial at the corner of Park Place and Warren Street. One of the things we've noticed is that from the sidewalk, you actually can't see the memorial very well because it's blocked by the arborvitae that's grown in there. And it's also not accessible. If a veteran wanted to go close to the memorial, they could not. A veteran in a wheelchair wanted to go close to the memorial, they could not. FOPS has spoke to a veteran about possibly relocating the monument, and we're also looking at the footprint of the fence. It takes up quite a bit of area of the lawn panel, and perhaps there's a way of either reducing the footprint or removing it altogether. But again, working with the veteran or veterans group. Our favorite site furnishings, they look a lot better painted green. I do agree with that, but I think they've passed their prime. And it would really be nice to upgrade the park furnishings. Something we've talked about, but and we can talk about further when we get into the detailed design, is possibly tying the site furnishings, the new site furnishings in Promenade Hill, to the public square, so you get some continuity in Hudson, and it starts to kind of set a more elegant tone than the concrete piers and slats that are there now. We also have the good fortune of the Citizens Advisory Committee on the Environment that did the arborist survey, and that for all of the trees in Hudson, and which included the park. So we know the exact species and number of trees in the park, and we have that on our new topographic survey. There's 2 honey locusts, 2 crimson maples that are on the 7th Street side, 7 Norway maples, 7 silver maples, and 1 sad little blue spruce over here. So a pretty dense tree canopy. The Norway maples in particular have large foliage and dense canopies, and they haven't been pruned for a long time. So they do shade out the lawn, especially midsummer in some areas of the park, as well as actually block some of the lighting in the park. Those were planted in 1969. I think Dorothy did the research on that. And so those were probably the same time period when the site furnishings that are there now went in. So it's been a while since the park has had a renovation. Here's just a diagram of the existing trees. Recently, a tree was removed here, and there's a stump over here. Another thing we've noticed is that, you know, this side of the park on Columbia really is lacking in shade and lacks that kind of more friendly edge that you find on Warren and 7th. Just in this small space, there's the condition and experience of the park varies widely. So we'd like to change that. We're also looking at lighting. The lights in the park, some of them, there's a couple that aren't on altogether. This diagram shows how the park would be illuminated if they were all on. They don't seem to follow any logical pattern in relation to the park design. And as a result, all of you, anyone here who's a designer, know that one of the rules, especially in exterior lighting, is to have a balance of uniform light, because it affects the way that your eye perceives the space. So here there's kind of too much light in some places and not enough in the others. So you get these kind of very dark spots in the center of the park. I was there a couple of Friday nights ago, just seeing what it was like. And actually in the center of the park, because of the Norway maples here that block this light, it's fairly dark. So I think lighting is absolutely, once we get the framework of the park down, we want to layer in proper lighting in the park. I will note we've found through our work on Promenade Hill and working with the city of Hudson that there are plans to convert the existing light fixtures on Warren Street to LED, and any new fixtures to LED lighting. The new lights, we've added 2 fixtures at Promenade Hill, which are LED. So you get a broader, cleaner light over a greater spread. So we'll propose an arrangement of lights, but again, like the exact details of that are really for the next phase, but we will propose that the lighting be redone. I think it would make a big difference. And added to that, the new fountain could have lighting as well. That would be, something to really, instead of having this dark foreboding spot in the center, you could have something really special. So we started just doing some some analytical diagrams of the space. This is actually just drawing what we saw in the postcards. So, the I'll say a semi-symmetrical design, and the ring of trees, the fountain, and there was a raised planted bed, and then steps up to the area around the fountain. This is a rendered diagram of exactly what's there today. We have a topographic survey performed by Crawford that FOPS had, which is essential to having an accurate design base. So you can see the change between the first plan and what's there today. There's 2 diagonal paths to the south and to the north. In addition to those diagonal paths, there's yet another diagonal across those diagonals connecting to the original linear paths going north and south. Is everyone still with me?
Yes.
Okay.
There's more than
so I'd also like to note just some of the things that are currently in the park, objects in the park. There's the clock on South and Warren, the Veterans Memorial on Warren and Park Place. There's the Chamber of Commerce structure on Columbia and Park Place. That's currently used for storage by the Wednesday market, so it doesn't necessarily need to be there. There's the concrete plank where Venus used to reside. There's a stump right next to that, so definitely a sad corner of the park. And then there's finally there's the peace posts and the fountain. So there's lots of things scattered within the park, and this is the actual bench arrangement and circulation there today. So we started looking at the layers of what's there in terms of connectivity and accessibility. Only 3 of the paths are accessible. The other 3 are not. They're either the grade change or a step that makes it inaccessible. There are also real underground constraints that we need to take into consideration. A large sewer line runs down the alley through the center of the park, probably explaining why the fountain is not in the center of the park. The fountain is just to the south of that sewer line, and any work we do will have to acknowledge that. I will say, regardless of where we end on the fountain design, when it is reconstructed, it will involve, excavation, all new pumps, vaults, water lines. This is something you only do once every 100 years. So understanding what's underneath when we do the design is very important, because it ensures that what we propose is feasible. That's a big part, the big part of what we're doing. The other thing to note is that a main water line goes along the edge of the park at Park Place that goes onto Warren Street. And so any curb work or design work along that edge really needs to acknowledge that water line. We don't yet have the electric and water lines for the park, but are going to work with the DPW to get them and add that to this survey. So I'm going to go quickly, and then I have a slide with them all at the same time, of just some design exercises we did to look at what happens when you start to peel away some of what's there. In this plan, we've just taken away that extra set of diagonals that link the diagonal to the linear path, and put additional seating around the center of the fountain, and made the entire area around the fountain more of a plaza space than a planted space. I think that, again, trying to think of how to fulfill the community need and desire for gathering, at the same time keeping the rest of the park as much of a green oasis as we can. Another thing I'd like to note on this plan, and I'll do it in the other plans too, is that the curb line of the park sidewalk does not align with its adjacent sidewalks. Next time you go there, look at this. The original park border aligns with the property lines east and west, and almost north and south. So if in the course of doing this, we can assemble a streetscape package, we think it would be a really good idea to extend the curb line to match the curb line to the west. And especially on this side where there is actually no crosswalk, no ramp, nothing. And this also a pretty fast traffic on the street. So this is something we've discovered and is there, and something to note. We're not going to, propose it or solve everything today, but I just wanted to point that out. The same condition exists on Warren Street. The edge of the sidewalk does not align with the edge of the sidewalk to the west or to the east. The park itself is narrower than all of its context. So here is one other version of the plan, taking away the diagonals. We have one where this has gone too. We'll get to it. But widening the central axis, perhaps adding chess tables or picnic tables along there. Perhaps having the market move to this corner of the park that's somewhat disconnected rather than having it here. It seems like all the activity in the park happens in this quadrant. This space could have some picnic tables, and the market could take up the parking spaces just on the day that the market is active, kind of trying to animate that corner of the park. This is a variation on that theme. In this one, letting go of that cross axis and unifying the green space on the west side of the park, and then widening the axial entry to the central fountain, kind of making this more of a promenade leading to the central plaza. But at the same time, really making sure those green open spaces are as open and as open as possible. I think, one way of satisfying a lot of competing desires for use is to make the space flexible. And I think having a few just big open lawn panels can satisfy that. This next scenario explores taking away the central path. And the other thing we propose is moving the Veterans Memorial onto Warren Street between these two existing trees. Again, making the lawn panel bigger, at the same time making the memorial accessible. Here's a version of that, taking away the center path and adding a diagonal from Park Place in Warren. And here's another version of that. So this one keeps the connection to South 7th Street. This one takes that connection away. This version also looks at expanding the curb. This one doesn't have the curb expanded, but we have a version. We have like 20 versions of this. But this one takes away that crossing. Again, I think, I'm really starting to like this unification of the green on that side, and then enhancement of the access to the center on this side. And yet another version of that, which would do a seating ring around the fountain, chess tables here, widened paths on all three corners. And this plaza could stay or go, but you can see how there's many variations on a theme here. And so that's just a snippet of our studies on how the circulation and interior of the park could be restored to better suit the needs of today, but at the same time restore some of the early design gestures for the park. So you see, we're trying to balance between these seemingly two extremes, but I think we'll get there, and we can have a discussion on this after. We could stop here. And then we have some images, precedent images for the fountain and some site furnishing. So those are the two other things we have. I don't know how much time we have today, but this slide shows you the original plan, the existing condition, and just a sequence of explorations that we've been engaged in. So the next thing we've been looking at is the fountain. I'm sure this one, even at the end of this process, we'll see more exploration. But what we wanted to do first is look at the existing condition of the fountain and what the fountain was. It's currently a cast in place. The bottom of the fountain is cast in place concrete, and the top are appear to be precast concrete planks. I know there was some literature that suggested it was stone or marble, but it's not. We actually went to visit Venus. She is in a safe place in a garage down by North Bay. And I presume she's been there since whenever the year they took her away. She's not in very good condition, but she's semi-whole. It turns out that Venus actually is not a unique Venus. She came from a catalog by J.L. Mott, and Dorothy managed to track down the catalog, and there are several. I think Carol had also done an article on this. There's more than one Venus out there. I think this one's at Steeplechase. It was like a kit of parts. You could choose Venus and then different fountain bases. So she does exist in other places. And here's a rendition her within the public square. And we actually also did, thanks to Yaniv, he reached out. We did some research. You can get a casting of her in bronze, and that's $81,000 without shipping. And that's not without the basin. So just to get a sense of, I wonder how much she cost. It would be good. Cost in 1883 be interesting to know. But we did start there. But knowing that there are cost issues, whether people want Venus back or not, that's what we're here to learn more of. So in the meantime, we thought, well, let's look at what are these different typologies of a fountain in a public square, and kind of broke them down to the kind of more complex to the simplest. One typology are multiple tiers. On the left is Piazza Farnese, the Bethesda fountain in Central Park, and this is the City Hall fountain in New York City. So that's one typology. One thing I wanted to bring up about the Venus fountain is her scale. We measured Venus, she's 6.5 feet. And if you measure proportionally, we calculated that the fountain was 18 feet high, which is really high. So you can imagine when you came down Warren Street or Columbia Street, that was a really big event. So how can we bring back the big event, whether it's with Venus or not, is what we'd like to do. So one version is it just a simple tiered fountain, maybe without the Venus statue? Can it be just a simple basin? Can it be more modern and just about the water, not necessarily about the object? Can it be stepped? Can there be some way of encouraging interaction with the water at the same time it gives a display? This is actually a really interesting example. Obviously not the scale of this park, but what's really interesting, this is the new fountain in Columbus Circle. Actually, it's maybe 10 years there now. But what it does is breaks the circle into 3 pieces, and you can walk into the center of the space where the Columbus statue is and sit along the edge of the fountain. Kids can go in it. It has quite a display of water, and it's also illuminated at night. Another example of this kind of stepped edge of the fountain is the historic fountain in Washington Square Park, which hopefully some of you know. But again, it allows people to walk into it, and when people aren't in it, it is. So thinking about how there can be some interaction and how that interaction relates to kind of the level of design. Here's some other examples of simpler, lower fountains that really just depend on the water, starting to kind of strip away the object and think just about the water. The one on the lower, the 2 on the lower are Gantry State Plaza, and actually this is a just missed. I don't think we want just missed, but what was interesting about this is how there's kind of seat walls. It's perfectly accessible. So in winter, which is a big amount of time, there's nothing there. So you do have your central space for events or entertainment or whatever you want to put in there when it's when the fountain's not on. And then finally, this is examples of a flush condition where there's no object at all. There's just ground jets, whether they're ornamental ground jets or something else. So those are kind of the extremes you could go to with a central water feature. So we haven't chosen any, but we're just looking at typologies, and our next step will be to test fit some of those typologies with this park. And we are actually very interested to get your early opinions on that direction before we go too far down any single path. And the furniture, this is my favorite bench photo so far. I don't know how it got that high, but this is the one over on Columbia Street. And this girl is like at least 18 inches off the ground. So we're looking at a very simple classic bench. We chose the Central Park settee for Promenade Hill because it matches most closely the bench that you see in the historic images. there's also the option of the hoof bench, which is also a fairly classic, very, very durable park bench. So we're still exploring that. And we'd also like to introduce some permanent tables. Right now, there's some wooden picnic tables. I think it'd be nice to have some chess tables. I think that was mentioned by the community as well. So they can double as a place to eat, and they are game tables. So they give an outdoor game table. Maybe a cluster of game tables are really popular. Anytime I've used them or seen them, they're definitely a nice way of amending the seating in the park. So that's it. That's our early analysis and our early studies of the edges, the interior, and the fountain. And I open it up for discussion. Do we want to bracket the discussion around the different things? Maybe, separate the fountain discussion and the park discussion. But, as you can see, we're really, just wrapping our heads around what the challenges are and starting to look at ways of bringing the park to a cohesive and beautiful space again. With that, I will stop. I hope I didn't.
Gail,
too long. Yeah.
that's extraordinary work you guys are doing. I had no idea at all.
I would second that. It's
The breadth
inspiring.
and depth of the analytics and the thoughtfulness of the work you've done. It's
Well, thank you.
really, really impressive, and congratulations to you and to your colleagues on FOPS. And I think we should just open it up and ask the commissioners to speak out on aspects that they want to comment on.
I wanted a question, Gail. So you mentioned in your findings that people wanted to see more interactivity and for kid stuff, perhaps. Other than the possibility of having a participatory fountain, is there other things that you're considered for that?
So I think the participatory fountain is the most important thing. Kids are going to go after it anyway. So definitely that is one thing. I think having the lawn panels, we forget kids don't always need objects to play, having space to play. And then, maybe we've talked about, is there a way of having some nature play, or is there a way of some elements in the park, maybe whether it's to climb on? I don't know. But I think so far the instinct is let the park be as simple as possible in some areas so multiple things can happen, right? You can kick a ball on a lawn. And I think I would also be careful about, doing a dedicated play area here, because a dedicated play area in a park surrounded on four sides by cars would have to have a fence, and you start to get into playground design. Yeah. And I think that the park should be child friendly. I absolutely think that, but I think that child friendliness is people friendliness, and it should be incorporated throughout. So that's my political answer for.
I think it's a very good answer. It's a complicated question, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
And the only other thing while I have the floor is, this is extraordinary. I didn't realize I missed the February 18th, and I didn't realize you all had gone so far in the thoughtfulness with which you're treating this, and so far in the designs. And I think they're all really interesting. The fountain is a hard question, and I don't know how the town will come to consensus on that, but it's an exciting opportunity.
Catherine, are you talking? You're muted.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to say something. I think that as far as the presentation Gail made, it's excellent. I just want to give a little background that FOPS did an RFQ not very long ago. We came up with Gail's firm, and she's done it very quickly. FOPS is paying Gail's firm some money and is applying for grants. And we're going to have a fundraising event on June 25th. So if people would like to join us at that fundraising event to help pay for this wonderful work that Gail's doing, fantastic.
Thanks, Dorothy. Commissioners, any thoughts, comments?
I agree that the thoughtfulness here is evident. It comes down to intent, I guess. Are we looking to have another generation of really driving this to a new place? Or are we harkening back to the past? that's the kind of foundational question here that we need to grapple with. And
Yeah.
we could do it and I could argue in all directions. But I do like this idea of giving it new life and infusing some sense of modernity with a nod to the past. I don't think we need to replicate things, and I don't think you would do that directly, but I like this idea of giving it another generation of thought.
No, you're absolutely right. That is the fundamental challenge here. That is the fundamental challenge here. And I think the fountain is key to that.
Very hard to make that argument, right? It's not 1880, and but we're in a historic town,
right?
So I think the public needs to inform us on this, because I can make an argument for either complete restoration or complete difference.
Yeah, but let's say, just for argument's sake, the public wanted a version of Lincoln Center, you know, this super modern thing with a vanishing edge and, you know, 12-foot jets with light in it. And I came back and I presented the plans of the park with something like that. How would this group respond to a more modern fountain?
We would have a public hearing, and we would take the input from the public, and then we would opine as individual commissioners and then vote. So I don't think you're gonna, if you're seeking direction from this body today as to whether you should go with Lincoln Center or a complete restoration of Venus, I don't think you're gonna get it. You might get individual opinions, but that would be the process by which we would come to an actual certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
So,
No,
but I mean, if you would ask me prior to your presentation what my personal opinion it would be, it would have been restore Venus and make it as much like the original as possible. But what you showed is so exciting and so much more accessible to the people of Hudson that I could easily be swayed the other way. So I think what I can see there's a lot of people here. We don't usually have this many people at our meetings, but there's a great opportunity here to gain consensus from the city of Hudson. And I'm sorry, you gain no consensus from the city of Hudson. I think that's the universal truth. But I think you can get participation from the town residents, and I think that's what we need. But I agree with Jeremy. I love the presentation inspires one to balance, to balance an update.
Okay, so we should mention, so we are going to develop schemes for the park in that gamut of options, and we are going to take that to the public, I think, in a week.
Yeah, it's June 3rd. And it's down at the chamber on First and Warren. So anybody's welcome to join us for that. Front, sorry.
Yeah. So we will present that gamut of options. And I think maybe we can have it online on the city's website. I want as many opinions as possible. I want to see, I'm sure Fops does too. We do want consensus. I will say I'm actually probably the more pragmatic one of our team. And I am very mindful, having spent a life in public design, of maintenance. And I know that, anything with a flush nozzle or a flush drain needs a lot of maintenance. If nozzles clog, in the most beautiful design, when the nozzles clog and the drains don't work, is not beautiful anymore. So I'm extremely mindful of this in what we show. And that's, another, Jeremy, that's the third challenge, is bridging the two, but then how can it be as durable and maintainable and beautiful as possible? And I will add that when we did our proposal, we actually brought on a fountain consultant, Delta Fountain, They're actually an incredible nationwide fountain consultant. They worked on the World Trade Center Memorial. They've worked on restorations. They know what they're doing. But I'm not bringing them in until we have consensus on a couple of very, maybe until we have the option that we think we want to show in this concept plan. And then they will come in and advise on the next steps to design the fountain. And they'll also help us with a cost estimate. So we have a real number when we go into the grant application of what it would take to do the design documents and engineering of whatever option we choose. So we do have a fountain consultant in the wings, but I think we have a lot to do before we bring them in.
Carol, I see, I think Carol has her hand up.
Okay.
Unless I'm misreading that. Carol, do you have a question or comment?
Unmute. I do not. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
I'll take, if you've got a moment, I first of all, really wonderful work that you're doing. Congratulations to the whole team and the nonprofit moving this forward and the community support. It's really a wonderful thing for the whole town, and you're to be congratulated on your hard work. And Gail, your thoughtful presentation and the effort that you've gone into analyzing this is terrific. I think you've really already achieved that balance between the preservation and the new work dilemma, if you will. I don't think it's a dilemma, and I don't think you even have a dilemma. You've addressed the beauty of the curve and the marking of the square. You've addressed the fountain and the centrality of that. You've addressed the paths, some of which are diagonal, some of which are rectilinear. And you've addressed the entire plane of this. The entire plane of the park is established by the and by the surrounding buildings that we already know are there. So there's a great deal of new modern thinking that this plan can absorb and still be both traditional and new at the same time. And I think that's what it needs. The dynamic of both and is what we want to achieve here. I think it's marvelous. I do think that there's great potential here for you, as you've already started to analyze the pedestrian connection through the park, both diagonal and rectilinear to the central fountain. I think has the potential to reinforce the potential, the pedestrian activity that we see on the grid in the city. We have 4 nodes of crossings that I think really should be reinforced with diagonals through to the fountain and allow people to walk from Columbia Street, the Columbia intersection, across the diagonal to the Warren Street connection. And in the other way, of course, that's interrupted in part by the railroad track. But to encourage people to walk from around the park, through the park, to get to another destination. They're not necessarily sitting in the park. They're not going to take a bench. They're not going to have an activity, but they're going to walk through the park. And that strolling is a very, very important activity for the park. It gives people direction. It gives the opportunity for a spontaneous interaction of people in the community. And I think building off of that is existing pedestrian grid that we have is really important. I think that some of those connections on Warren Street that you point out, where the sidewalk does not align with the sidewalks on either side of the park, could be moderated by bump outs in the sidewalk, preserving the granite line that exists now defining the park, and preserving the parking, but creating larger pedestrian zones at those intersections. And that could be a way to foster people, again, greater landing areas, safer pedestrian parking, and really they're generous enough that they could be quite attractive collective nodes at the four corners of the park. I think it's also extremely useful to think about when there's one mid-street crossing on Columbia Street right now that goes to the Norway Park. That if those two corners of the park are reinforced as you propose for connection across Columbia Street, it reduces the necessity of that mid-park crossing on Columbia Street. However, if you were to, so that could go away. But if you were to develop a mid-crossing at the alley, so the long leg of the park, if you will, that could in fact come off of what would be the south corner of the park, the south corner of the alley, going west, excuse me, to the south corner of the other alley corner, that aligns with the fountain location more or less. And if there were to be mid-pedestrian crossings there, the one obviously going to the west would be crossing the railroad track. But I think the potential to have that mid-crossing would greatly increase pedestrian activity all the way around the park and through the park.
So we're talking, there's this.
Yeah.
And then there's this.
Yes.
I agree. I think right now there's too many crossings
Right.
to square on this side.
Right.
And this-
the crossing, that crossing that you just marked, if that were, if the sidewalk were just to be enlarged to align with the Warren Street sidewalk east and west of that, it would allow for the parking to remain. It would allow for your existing curb to remain and to create a larger sidewalk at the corners. What I was just proposing is if you go to South 7th Street and go to the south side of the alley, that corner, and
Here.
draw a line that, yes, from the sidewalk, not in the middle of the alley, not that sidewalk, the south side, sorry, of that. Draw that straight line all the way through down to Park Place. Keep going straight down to that corner. If that were to become a path, that would allow a direct connection between the south side, the west side of the park and the east side of the park, through the park. It would circle around it would go around the fountain in a not in a precise axial way, but certainly contribute to that kind of that pedestrian activity. Exactly.
So you have these, you have this, and you have this.
Right.
And
And
this.
then also from the, if as in one of your designs you had from the bottom left-hand corner, if you will, of the park, a diagonal through, you can then eliminate the axial path, that being more or less the south side of the park, if you will, maybe the opportunity for greater lawn production there as your less sun or more sun on that triangle on the south side of the park.
Yeah, let's get to that one. There's almost that.
Yeah.
But
So-
saying this plus this connection here.
Right. Right. And as being done else in other parts of the lower part of Warren Street, that connection of the crosswalks become really important pedestrian nodes that are protected from traffic. It slows down traffic. It gives pedestrian security crossing the street and increases automobile visibility to pedestrians and from drivers and so forth. So it's a great plan. It's a great community effort. I endorse every direction that you're going and can't wait to see your next step. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for that desk crit. No, yeah, I think the instincts, those are really
I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
No, I think you're spot on. I think, acknowledging the flow of people the way as it works now is critical. Otherwise you'll have desire lines where people want to go anyway. So why not embrace them, make them larger, have seating along them. Like you said, I love this idea. You're strolling through, but then you find yourself stopping, and that's kind of what it's about, right? So
one other thing I just want to plant the seed in everybody's thinking. Maybe 15 years, maybe it's 50 years, but sooner or later the railroad track is going to go away, and it's going to become a hike and bike pedestrian path from the Hudson River to this park. And that's really and would be an incredible asset for the community if and when that ever happens. I hope it happens within 15 years, not within 50 years, but I think that our planning for the park needs to embrace that potential, because sooner or later, I believe it really will happen.
yeah, that's a really important point. Maybe I think I want to diagram this, kind of zoom out a little bit and diagram that on the urban scale. I think that's a really good idea. And kind of, I think it's important to plant that seed in everyone's head so we start to see it that way. That would be amazing.
I'd like to add something to what Chip said. Thank you, Chip, so much for those really, really insightful and supportive comments. But I just want to say that a number of years ago, Matthew Frederick did a presentation that I saw about the park, and a lot of people saw it, and it was very interesting because he talked about how the paths in the park logically would start from the corners and not be mid-block. And it was only when we did the historic looking at the park, we saw, oh, well, that's why they start mid-block. They did it that way in the 19th century, but the diagonals are important. But also, I also want to say that when Catherine Kanaga and I went to talk to Mike Tucker about funding opportunities, he said we should have a very broad remit for our project, and that one of the things we should think about is traffic calming. And we haven't talked much about traffic in this presentation, but certainly what Chip's saying and what Gail has said really do touch on how this park could help the whole area, which is on a major truck route and full of problems as far as pedestrian goes.
Absolutely. Thank you. If it's okay with everybody, there's some inside baseball that I want to discuss with the commission before I lose everybody in terms of the conversation that Chip and I were having early before the meeting. I am so proud to have you guys here and see what you're doing in Hudson, and your courtesy in coming to see us. You are obviously welcome anytime. We don't have to be quite this formal. You can communicate as you see fit, but it's an extraordinary thing that you guys are doing, and thank you so much for sharing it.
Oh, thank you for letting us share it. It's really, it's wonderful to have your feedback, and we look forward to having more conversations about the park, and maybe at the benefit.
You absolutely will have more. Tell me that benefit date again.
June
25th.
Yep, at Hudson
The
Hall.
afternoon at Hudson Hall.
Okay.
3 to
Thank
5.
you so much. If forgive me, I do need my commission back. I'd like to
All right.
Adjourn this section and just have a little bit of inside baseball conversation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all.
Bye.
I do need to leave very, very shortly, so I'm on a really short fuse.
Okay. Michael, can I ask you to kind of clear the room a bit? We are discussing in effect, a personnel matter.
So you are voting to move into like attorney-client privilege session, is that right?
I believe the code says that for discussions of personnel, we're entitled to form an executive meeting. Or
Okay.
Okay.
Then I would just ask that you formally vote to do that, and then I will go ahead and move people.
May I have a motion to for the commission to go into executive session?
I make that motion.
Motion and a second. John, thank you very much. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All done. So we're gonna clear the room a little bit. I'd like the commissioners, Craig, if you can stay for this discussion, I'd appreciate your wisdom on this.
Okay.
Thank you. Terrific. Thanks so much, Michael. Got one more, I think. Good. I just want to come back to the secretary issue. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I would love some advice and help on this. It's quite frustrating.